The U.S. Senate has just delivered a stunning and unprecedented rebuke to President Trump's trade agenda, sending shockwaves through Washington and beyond. In a decisive move, senators voted to nullify his controversial tariffs on Canada and Brazil, a policy that has been at the center of heated debate for years. These tariffs, central to Trump's America First strategy, have sparked fierce debate and widespread economic pain, straining long-standing alliances and placing a heavy burden on American businesses struggling to stay afloat. Critics argue the tariffs, justified under the banner of national security, have backfired, triggering retaliatory measures that hit American farmers especially hard and raise prices for families across the country, from groceries to everyday goods. The Senate's bipartisan vote marks a direct challenge to Trump's authority, signaling deep frustration with his go-it-alone approach and a rare willingness to cross party lines for the sake of economic stability. In late October 2025, senators moved to end the national emergencies Trump used to impose these barriers, making a clear and forceful statement: the economic fallout's no longer tolerable, and the costs are being felt in every corner of the nation. This isn't just a procedural move, it's a rare, united stand against a president's core policy, reflecting a growing consensus that the nation's economic health must come before political loyalty. The Senate, often slow to act, has now twice voted to block the Canadian tariffs, revealing a fundamental split over the future of U.S. trade and the direction of American leadership on the global stage. The economic strain is real, and the initial support for a trade war has faded into disillusionment as workers and families grapple with the consequences of prolonged uncertainty. The question now: will this crack in presidential power widen, leading to a broader rebalancing of authority between Congress and the White House, or will it be contained as a singular moment of defiance? The Senate's action has set the stage for a new and uncertain battle over America's economic direction, with the world watching to see what comes next. On October 29, 2025, the Senate floor became the stage for a rare and powerful bipartisan stand, one that would reverberate far beyond the walls of Congress. In a decisive moment, 50 senators came together to vote in favor of nullifying Trump's tariffs on Canadian imports, sending a clear signal of unity and resolve. This was not a typical party line vote. Instead, it was a coalition of Democrats and key Republicans, united by a common cause. For years, farmers and manufacturers across the country had been battered by the ongoing trade war, their voices growing louder with each passing season. The Senate didn't stop there. Lawmakers also passed resolutions to end tariffs on Brazilian goods, signaling a broader shift in trade policy. They moved to roll back Trump's global tariff strategy, aiming to restore stability and predictability to international markets. Lawmakers like Senator Tim Kaine led the charge, framing the debate as a fight not just over tariffs, but over the very balance of power, challenging executive overreach and reasserting congressional authority in matters of trade. Senators spoke passionately about the real economic pain in their states: soybean farmers losing vital export markets, factories struggling to keep up with soaring steel costs, and entire communities facing uncertainty. For many Republicans, the vote meant risking Trump's wrath and potential backlash from party loyalists. But for them, it was about answering the desperate pleas from their state's economic backbones: farmers, workers, and small business owners. In the end, enough senators crossed the aisle to make history, putting the national interest above party loyalty and showing that cooperation is still possible in Washington. The message was unmistakable. Congress is reclaiming its role in shaping America's economic future, determined to act in the best interests of the nation. 4 Republican senators, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski, were pivotal in the Senate's revolt. McConnell, usually a party loyalist, cited the devastation tariffs brought to Kentucky's farms and bourbon industry. Rand Paul, a staunch libertarian, opposed tariffs as harmful taxes that distort the free market. Collins and Murkowski, representing states reliant on trade, broke ranks to protect Maine's seafood and Alaska's energy and tourism sectors. Their votes signaled a deepening rift in the GOP, driven by the real economic harm in their states. These senators, known for their independence, turned a partisan protest into a bipartisan victory. Their defiance underscored the widespread backlash against Trump's trade policies. The rebellion was as much about principle as it was about protecting constituents. The true cost of Trump's tariffs is felt far from Washington, in the fields and homes of America. Farmers, once patient, have seen markets vanish and prices plummet, especially after China, once the top buyer of U.S. soybeans pulled back. Billions in government aid haven't restored lost income or trust. Retaliatory tariffs from Canada, China, and Europe have turned American crops into symbols of distress. Manufacturers face soaring costs for steel and aluminum, squeezing profits and raising prices for consumers. Small businesses, lacking the clout of big corporations, struggle to survive. Grassroots opposition has surged, farmers lobbying Congress, business coalitions running ads, even invoking Ronald Reagan's free trade legacy. The economic pain is acute in rural red state communities, Trump's own base. The divide between protectionism and free trade is now personal for millions of Americans. President Trump defends his tariffs as vital for national security, linking them to the fight against fentanyl at the Canadian border. But the data doesn't back him up. Less than 1% of seized fentanyl comes from Canada. Critics say the national emergency was a pretext to bypass Congress and settle personal scores. Lawmakers are alarmed by this expansion of executive power, fearing it sets a dangerous precedent. Trump's threats to escalate tariffs often respond to criticism, not new evidence, like his vow to raise tariffs after a TV ad challenged his policy. This unpredictability has frustrated allies and businesses, making long-term planning impossible. Senators are voting not just against tariffs, but against the chaos and impulsiveness defining Trump's trade approach. America's credibility and economic stability are at stake. The Senate's stand is as much about restoring order as it is about trade. Despite the Senate's bold votes, their resolutions are mostly symbolic, blocked by House leadership and certain to face a presidential veto. The House, controlled by Trump loyalists, can prevent these measures from ever reaching a vote. Even if they passed, Trump's veto would be insurmountable without a two-thirds majority. The real impact is political forcing senators to go on record and signaling growing opposition to Trump's trade war. These votes arm lawmakers with ammunition for the next election and show the president his support is eroding. Congress is flexing its muscle even if it can't yet change policy. The deep divisions over trade and executive power are now out in the open. The fight over America's economic future is far from over. As the Senate challenged his tariffs, President Trump announced a new deal with China. The U.S. would reduce certain tariffs, and in return, China agreed to purchase 25 million metric tons of American soybeans each year. This agreement was presented as a breakthrough in the ongoing trade war, a sign that negotiations could yield tangible results even amid global uncertainty and political pressure at home. The deal was touted as a win for struggling American farmers, who had been hit hard by retaliatory tariffs and falling prices. Yet despite the headlines, the promised soybean purchases still fell short of the robust export levels seen before the trade war began, leaving many in the agricultural heartland unconvinced. Some Republicans praised the agreement as a step in the right direction, but even they acknowledged that farmers continued to rely on federal aid just to keep their operations afloat. The financial strain was far from over, and uncertainty lingered in rural communities. Democrats, meanwhile, criticized the deal as a sign of weakness. They argued that Trump had created the crisis with his aggressive tariffs, only to claim victory for a partial fix that failed to address the deeper economic wounds inflicted by the trade war. The soybean agreement underscored the administration's transactional and unpredictable approach to global trade, easing tensions with China in one moment, while escalating disputes with traditional allies like Canada in the next. This inconsistency left not only America's allies and adversaries, but also businesses and investors struggling to plan for the future. The rules of global commerce seem to shift with each new announcement. For American farmers, the soybean deal offered a glimmer of hope and some short-term relief, but it did little to resolve the deeper uncertainty and anxiety that continued to plague global trade. The president's claim of victory rang hollow for many families and small businesses, still suffering from the fallout, as they struggled to pay bills and keep their doors open. Even as headlines shifted to new developments, the costs of the trade war remained visible in empty storefronts and anxious communities across rural America. In the end, America's economic strategy appeared more uncertain than ever, with the future of trade and the livelihoods of millions still hanging in the balance. The Senate's dramatic votes and Trump's China deal have ushered in a new, uncertain era for U.S. trade policy. Tariffs on Canada and Brazil will likely remain, but the political landscape has shifted. A bipartisan coalition has shown Congress is willing to challenge protectionism and executive overreach. Key senators like McConnell and Kenney will keep pressing the economic and constitutional arguments. The Republican Party faces a reckoning. Will it return to free trade or embrace Trump's nationalist vision? The outcome will shape the future of American conservatism and the economy. The Senate's symbolic stand could spark real change if public pressure grows. The debate over tariffs and America's global role is now front and center. The consensus on trade is shattered, and the next chapter is just beginning.